Okay, so I think that, well, first of all, thank you guys for coming. I think that the best thing to do is kind of introduce myself from things that I think are relative to my perspective, because I think that that's going to help the whole conversation just move along a little faster. So my name's Lindsay Zimmerman. I left home when I was 14 and became self-employed when I was 25. I founded my LLC, Better Than Barter, last year when I was 25. And I am by nature an extremely anti-authoritarian type person. A little bit about Better Than, the company. Our mission is to provide services that relieve stress so that you can breathe and fulfill your full potential. That's what I want my company to do. I always felt from a really young age that we're not living correctly. I could never really quite put my finger on it, but I know the exact moment that I realized it. I was walking home from school in 3rd grade, and I came across this couple that was looking at the trees, and I was like, what are you doing? This is bizarre to me. What are you doing? And they said, we're bird watching. And I was just like, people just go out and watch birds? That's what people do that? The idea was so foreign to me that people just go out and observe nature for fun. And right there it clicked for me, like, I'm not living correctly, and I think that most people aren't. And that stuck with me my whole life. So in forming Better Than, what I would like to do is provide ways for people to live closer to how we should be naturally. That's really what I want to do. Our flagship project is an app. It's called Better Than Barter. And Better Than Barter's, all it does is reward people for doing favors for each other. That's all it does. The second project that I'm in research right now for Better Than Barter is Better Than Childcare. Definitely in the early stages of research for that. That's going to be a really big project. And hopefully, eventually, further down the line, we'll have Better Than Health Share also. So that's my goal for my company, because I feel like if I can get us closer to living how we should be living, then I'm doing a pretty good job. So I'm here, the reason that we're having this talk tonight, this one, Capitalism and the Value of Human Life, is I want to convince you of two things. The first is that we don't have real capitalism in America. Let me just check my notes real quick. I don't want to get lost. So let's start with what capitalism means. The very abbreviated version is an economic system based upon private ownership of the means of production and their operation for profit. So that's pretty straightforward. That makes pretty good sense. So we supposedly live in a capitalistic society, so how does that function every day in the way that it works in the United States? The first case in point here that I want to share with you guys is Judge Varela and Conahan. These two judges took $2.6 million to convict more than 5,000 children to sentences in juvenile detention centers. And they were sentenced to 28 and 17 years respectively. So what these judges would do is they took bribes from these privately owned juvenile detention centers. And if somebody got in trouble in school, let's say they harassed their principal or something like that, and charges were pressed against the student, they would convict on something like that. This is an actual example. 5 years in a juvenile detention center, which is paid by taxpayers. Let's see. There was also in that particular case, there was also private sector parties. These were contractors that actually ended up serving between a year and 18 months also. So it was a pretty widespread situation, and that happened in New York State. My second point is that oil companies don't actually pay taxes. They get subsidies, it's about $4 billion a year that oil companies get subsidies from the federal government. They are subject to the same corporate tax laws as everyone else, but all of the loopholes that are in our tax system actually lean toward profiting energy companies in particular. Some of the largest companies have a tax obligation of negative 5.1%. So that means that they actually don't pay in anything, and they get money back from the government every year. So if you're running a multi-billion-dollar company, it somehow doesn't make sense that you would have that you would need a tax refund, but that's the way it works right now. And then I want to move on to the Sackler family. Has anybody heard of the Sackler family? No? Okay. So let's meet the Sackler family. We're going to refer to them as the Sackler defendants. And they include, and I'm going to use their names, they include Richard Sackler, Beverly Sackler, David Sackler, Eileen Sackler left court, John Sackler, Kathy Sackler, Mortimer D.A. Sackler, and Teresa Sackler. So this is, I'm going to read from the actual court case brought against them by the New Jersey district attorney. The defendants' actions caused and continue to cause public health epidemics. They cause death, serious injury, a severe disruption to public peace, order, and safety, and it is ongoing, and it is producing permanent and long-lasting damage, and that's from court documents. So the Sackler family are the 8 ruling board members of Purdue Pharma. This is the company that produces OxyContin. It was shown in the court documents that they had email correspondences back and forth talking about the highly addictive nature of OxyContin when it was still in the testing phase. They also have court documents showing that their approach to marketing was to convince doctors to use OxyContin as the first line of treatment in things like back aches, joint pain, and headaches. And there's when it came out what their marketing practices were, and that included payoffs to doctors, really generous donations to their offices and things like that. They decided, rather than own up to their marketing practices, to blame it on the addicts themselves, that people who get addicted to painkillers are bad people. That was their strategy for dealing with their aggressive marketing techniques, I guess. So that's the Sackler family. They're one of the people making it rich under our capitalistic society that we live in right now. Next, I'm kind of going through this pretty quickly because I want to get to the discussion part of it. But one of the things that makes it most obvious to me that we don't really have true capitalism right now is our education system. global education assessment, in the 2019 first quarter rankings, the United States is 14th. And that is out of a list of 20. Just to give you an idea, the first ranking is Finland, and the lowest ranked is Saudi Arabia, and we are 14. So Saudi Arabia is 20, and we're 14. But it's not really our scores that make me think that there is a problem with our public education system. What really gives me a hard time about our public education system is that it is designed and implemented, administrated by people who don't believe in it enough to put their own children in it. The people who design and implement the American public education system put their children in private schools. This is straight from the top, from the people in Department of Education all the way down to your school superintendents. They do not put their children in public schools. And there's a reason for that, because they're not going to get the best education. I'm not saying that they're going to get the best education in private schools either. I think that the American education system is flawed enough that even the private schools are really behind the times when it comes to weighing ourselves globally. But it's a pretty deep cut to the public education system that these people who design it won't even let their own children be involved. So we could get into the nasty politics of it. We could talk about what this horrible congresswoman did, or what this terrible racist thing that this senator over here said, or we could get into that kind of, I guess, really sad side of American life, but I don't want to do that, because I think that for the most part in this country, it's just made up of a lot of good people. There's a lot of, to be an American means that we know what self-governance looks like. We know what it means to have to fight for all of the things that everyone today takes for granted. We, in our history, have worked really hard to get to where we are today. So I don't want to make it sound like America's terrible. We're doing this all wrong. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. I think that you could look at it this way. Capitalism, the capitalist system in America is under a democratic republic. That's kind of the general narrative that is put out there. That's kind of the established idea, is that a democratic republic works when you have a capitalist system. Or you could look at it like it's an oligarchic rule in a society run by psychopaths. That's kind of how I tend to look at it. And if that's a little out there for you, let me just read to you the definition of an oligarchy. It's a form of government in which all power is vested in a few persons or in a dominant class or clique. Government by the few. So I would say that that's a lot closer to what we live in today than a capitalist country under a democratic rule. That, hands down, is a lot closer to where we're at today. But it's not, I'm not trying to say that it's all on capitalism. I'm not trying to say that it's all these rich CEOs that take their billion-dollar parachutes right before they, bankrupt their country or their company. It's not, the greedy CEO that's trying to scrape together every last dollar and pinch it from every pocket that he can before, I don't know, Bernie Madoff has to go to jail or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that there is something deeply wrong with how this is going for us, and I think it's time to acknowledge it. It's just time to say This is not what capitalism is. What you people are doing is not what we have all agreed to, and let's move forward from there. So that's the first thing that I want to convince you of, that there is no true capitalism in the United States right now. The second thing that I want to convince you of is that we as a human race do not know the true value of human life. This is, to me, one of the most fundamental problems that I see all around me. I guide myself based off of two kinds of truth, okay? One is physical truth, which I can see, smell, taste, hear, touch, physical truths. The other is personal truths. What is true to me? In all of my experience and my perspective, from my perspective, what seems true to me? I want to talk about a living wage. So right now we have a lot of politicians that are pushing a living wage right now, and it seems to me, arbitrarily put $15 an hour on it. There might be some formula or algorithm that they've used to come to that amount. I'm not sure, but I just did a little bit of math. So a living wage, $15 an hour, over the course of 40 years, which is how long most people work before retirement, is $1.2 million. $1.2 million for an entire lifetime of labor investment. That seems like a pretty low number. Can I send my kids to school on that? Can I pay off a vehicle on that? Can I buy a house with that? $1.2 million over 40 years. I don't think that seems like what would be considered a living wage. Okay. Which kind of makes sense, because if you think about it, the total value of the human body on the black market is $43 million. $43 million, that's a pair of eyeballs is $1,525. A scalp is $607. Oh yeah, I said a scalp. That's what I said. Yeah. No, a skull with teeth is $1,200. I'm going to keep going because this is crazy. A skull with teeth is $1,200. A shoulder is $500. Coronary artery, $1,525. A heart is $119,000. A liver is $157,000. Somebody was asking me earlier about kidneys, and I knew that I had the number too low, so I'm going to correct myself right now. It's $262,000 for a kidney. So, all I can see is our politicians are telling me that I am worth more dead than I am alive. That's what that sounds like to me. If my life is worth $15 an hour, that is a living wage. $1.2 million for an entire lifetime's worth of work and effort, blood, sweat, and tears. $1.2 million. Or, if I'm in a bad position, I could just sell off my body parts for $43 million and maybe help my family out of debt. That doesn't seem like a possible scenario that we should have to consider in 2019. Like, that seems wild to me, that maybe I'm worth more dead than I am alive. And then it makes me think, like, what sets us aside from animals? Because clearly we put ourselves above animals. Look at how we approach factory farming, how even vegans love their soy, right? But every time that combine plows through a soy field, it's a rabbit holocaust rolling through there. They're killing all kinds of ground nesting animals, and then they, eat their tofu, and they say, "Oh, look at I'm so animal friendly. I'm vegan." I think that we definitely hold ourselves in higher value than animals. I really think that we do. And there's got to be a clear reason for that. Like, there's something innately in all of us that makes us look at human beings as more valuable than what we consider maybe lesser life forms, or maybe less conscious life forms might be a more fair way to say that, right? But what is it? What what is it that makes humans more valuable than anything else in the animal kingdom? What makes us more worth more effort, I'm going to say. So I think I know what it is. I think that our imagination and our ability to create with our hands, I think that this is what makes human beings unique and divine. I don't really get into religious talk that much because it's not really it's not part of my perspective that much. But when I consider the value of human life, I think that humans are definitely divine. I think that we definitely come from a creator. And that's a really good place to start when you're trying to talk about the value of human life. But I think that it's important to point out how we know that we don't really value human life. Just look at how we're willing to dismiss each other. Races are willing to dislike entire groups of people based on their skin color. The rich have a disdain for the poor, and the poor assume that the rich are all evil. We have pro-life, pro-war believers. I don't understand how somebody could have hold those two positions. Be okay with going to war, but being pro-life. I don't understand that. I wish somebody would explain it to me. It seems really counterintuitive. But then we're also absolutely willing to fall into xenophobia whenever it suits us. This person is from that country. We view that country as an enemy. They are bad people over there, whether it be Venezuela or Russia or wherever. I'm told that these are bad people, so I'm going to think that these are bad people. That's kind of where we're at in this country right now. And that to me is just a blazingly clear sign that we don't actually know what the value of human life is. So if we're going to be real about what that value is, we need to realize that our value isn't the sum of our parts or our labor. Our value is added up in the quality of our experience in this world. So you are the only human on this planet that can offer your perspective because of your unique experiences. You're the only person that has it. The authenticity of your imagination is what sets you aside from every other human being on the planet. Your experience is priceless. You remember those MasterCard priceless commercials? You know what I'm talking about. The reason that they're so effective is because people intuitively know that the most valuable thing, the most priceless thing, isn't going to be bought with a credit card. That's why that marketing campaign was so effective. But how do we know that? It's because we know that every single one of us is not only priceless, but that we're precious. You and you and you and you, like, we all offer a different perspective because of our unique life experiences, and therefore nobody else can offer or contribute to society what you can contribute. So if we can take that as a resolution, that no one can contribute what you can contribute. If we feel resistance to that, that to me is a truth. No one else can offer what I have to offer, and no one else can offer what Carrie or Jen or Jackie has to offer. Then that comes with a responsibility. It comes with knowing that there is a potential to be filled in each of us, and that if we're ever going to be our best selves and contribute to the world what we're capable of contributing, then we have to fulfill that potential. And that's a big responsibility, and it's scary for a lot of people, I think. But I'm learning you can handle your responsibility any way you see fit. It's going to be unique to you. Just as unique and authentic as your imagination is, your spark of divinity is, your contribution, your ability to leave a big footprint on this planet before you leave is unique to everyone. No one can tell you how to do it. Nobody can tell you how it's supposed to be done. That's for you to figure out and for you to do what's meaningful to you. So that's why I'm having these talks. I want to take some responsibility. I want to let people know that these conversations are out here happening, that people are thinking about these things. If you're at home thinking about these things by yourself, you're not alone. Other people are thinking about these things. And no, I don't think you're worth $15 an hour. I think you're worth so much more. So